I'm going to show you guys how I photograph a subject and how it actually works. So I'm going to borrow our...
We have a wonderful subject here who is ready to help you out.
Hi. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Michelle. I'm the PA,
Michelle.
so you've
I'm
probably
Jeff.
seen me around.
Yes.
Yeah.
You've been running around like a mad
I
person.
have. It's
She
been a
works a
busy
lot.
week.
It's
do.
photo week. She is an amazing employee. I've seen her run around. It is our first time interacting, which is kind of awkward. So you actually get to see our first interaction together. So I'm putting somebody on the spot. Yeah. So what do you do? What do you do for fun?
I do photography too, and I work in video also. I run.
She runs?
Yes, I'm actually scheduled to run a marathon this Sunday. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
Congrats.
Thanks.
How are your legs doing?
Ooh, I'm a little unprepared. We'll see how it goes. So.
All the running around I've seen you guys do, I think you're overprepared. That is very, very true. Okay, first and foremost, power. I know I'm going to get this question, power of light. I'm all the way at 8.1 on this specific light. I don't want that much power. It's going to bounce around everywhere. It's going to make everything just explode into that little room. I'm going to bounce this up to 4. Let's take our camera. I'm going to take a couple photos. I'm going to take it within the parameters of this room. So I discussed before, I have the maximum viewing distance towards the side. We're going to take one that's directly in front of her, see how that works in the background, and figure out how to hide that corner if we were going to photograph the subject, Michelle, in that corner. 1/25, ISO 2000. Something tells me I still had my setup from yesterday. Thank you very, very much. And make sure it's on the right channel. There you go. Test. Awesome. Perfect. It's really, really overexposed, and there's a point to this. So I haven't switched anything. It's now 8.6. It's really overpowered. So what are we seeing with the light, even though it's overexposed? It's right behind her, right? That's not what we want. We don't want to see the background. If I was trying to shoot something that's Rembrandt light, I'm getting the light on the background itself. I'm going to lower the power of this. Again, I'm basically a chef, just to make sure that we have the correct exposure. And those of you that are going to ask me about my light choice, I'm currently photographing with a Sigma art lens, the 35. I'm going to try one more time. It's a fun lens. Perfect. Very, very contrasty light. I'm all the way at 1/25, 13, ISO of 100. Okay, very, very contrasty form of light, but you can still tell it's overexposed. There's a point to this. You're like, I don't like whatever I saw there. Perfect. Perfect. You totally blinked, but for the, you know what? I'm gonna take another one because I feel bad you blinked. Look at me, perfect, gorgeous. To the point of this is so you guys see how my mind works in order for me to get into the set. So now that it's decently exposed, there's still a highlight on the face, I still see that background, right? Because that's the way the beauty dish works. It's a little dark of a center. I can see the form of light. So we're gonna throw that grid on there. I want to direct light at Michelle. If this knocks you in the head, because I've done that to people before, I'm sorry. So the only thing I've put on there is our grid. Take this same photograph. Perfect. All we're doing is that we're directing light towards that background, right? So I've done nothing aside from throw a grid on there, but there's no light on the background. I'm directing, controlling light, right? I'm currently using a 35. If I thought it needed to be a little brighter, a little more exposed, because it's changed exposure, I can move it forward. I can change my exposure depending on what I'm trying to photograph. Remember my angle of view, I'm using a 35mm lens. She's very, very pretty, so she's not gonna have issues with a 35mm lens, but a lot of clients will. You know, a lot of clients, I spoke during the men's portrait workshop about face shapes. 35 for people with wider faces that are self-conscious about their face. I use a 35 in portrait style in order to thin that out because of lens compression, so I use it to my advantage. But in a case like hers where she's very pretty, I can photograph with 35 and I shouldn't have too much issues with distortion. She may not care. She's like, I'm a photographer. I know that's not correct. Perfect. Move that light over. Move it sideways there. Perfect. Beautiful. And I told you guys before, I have direct control over everything that's happening in that room. We're not having white bounce back. Okay, it's a very pretty portrait. If I were to take, if I was tired, if I didn't like this portrait and I wanted some fill, do we have a white fill card anywhere at all? No?
Foam core?
Foam core.
White, yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Do you mind being my assistant for 5 seconds afterwards? Thank you. Okay, in the meanwhile, can I have an assistant from one of you just help me for something, or for a second? Whoever's entertained. If you want to come with me, come with me. I can't say that word. You guys will block it out. I was going to say the movie with one of those governors? Come here. That became a governor, and it come with me if you want to. Can't finish that. Can you walk in for 2 seconds? So let's say I'm shooting my subject in a blue room. We talked about color cast before. So if you want to go closer, right there. See if we're going to have any specific mark. Keep going closer. It's right there. Thank you very, very much. Perfect. Let's see if we have any color cast there. See if it's bouncing off enough. Perfect. If you can bring down the, thank you. Okay, let's look at that last one. It's not a very reflective material, but you'll start to see, this is a color calibrated monitor, so it's not going to say anything. There's a very thin blue frame in the cheekbones here. Can I have the white fill card? You're my best friend. See, I only use people. They're only my friends when I need them. Come with me.
All right.
I'm going to have you stand there. Okay. So I'm going to quickly discuss this because I know that you're not a photographer. As a photographer, there's something called the angle of incidence. Angle's the angle of reflection. Those of you that don't know what that means in layman's terms, when this bounce here bounces to that, it's going to bounce in the exact angle that it hit. If you guys play pool, it's the same thing. It hits here, it'll bounce exactly where it is off. So if you're going to use that as a fill card and you want to fill in those dark shadows, you want to make sure that you're faced towards the light. So you want to hold it towards her side. Let's say here. Right? So if I take this and I want it to bounce it around, I'm thinking about the way that that light's going to travel to her face. So if I wanted to remove the black shadows that are on the side of her face, I can move it parallel because that's what I'm trying to remove. I can move it towards the side because I don't see anything that's behind her head, but ultimately I just want the side of her face to be in reflection. So I'm going to have you hold it perfectly there. Perfect. Thank you. Perfect. Awesome. I never thought I would have to say that out loud. I told you guys I'm not a technical person. Either that or I'm a technical person and refuse to admit it. What have I done? I have full control of light. That thing, I think that's a pizza box. I don't even think that's a, but we can start using that to create reflections and we're able to move things around in the room and it doesn't really cost any money. I have full control over that. So what do we use? A grid and a reflector. And I can still take a portrait, but I'm shooting at a 35. It's a very wide lens. It doesn't go with every specific photograph. So if I was going to shoot my subject from this close, it's not going to work. So what happens? I need to change my lens to correct for the fact that my subject may not look as best as possible. So if I'm going to grab a lens, I don't want to grab this unless I'm shooting towards the 70 side. And even then, you may not have enough distance. But we're going to try it. We're going to go to 70 on a full frame camera. Okay, I'm going to go to 70 now. Perfect. I'm 8 feet. Perfect. This is 70 millimeters, which is, it's still, what, telephoto, mid, but it's not completely 200. Perfect. Okay, but if I'm using, let's say, an 85, for example, you're going to hate me for this, how close it is. My focus distance is exactly where I'm standing. So I'm literally pressing back button focus, and I can't even focus on her. So what do? I can't move back because I'm supposed to be in this small space. So I'm going to ask you, can you move back about 6 to 8 inches? Thank you. Kelsey, you can put that down for 2 seconds. Your arm is hurt. I can move my light now relative to her. And think about what I'm doing. If I change this to her and I move it closer towards that background, that angle of light is going to start getting closer to that wall. So I need to make sure I'm compensating and turning it towards the side so I don't hit that wall. And again, shooting in small spaces, that's how minute detail you have to think as you're moving the lights. Perfect. I can move it over. I shouldn't have, so think about the way that the grid works. It should be blocking off just behind her. I'm moving it over, just side bit. I pretended that it was like a giant weight. So we're gonna take that same photograph at 85. Perfect. I can now focus on her. You heard the focus. Beautiful. And if you can bring it in that reflector. So you wanna bounce off towards the side of her face. Perfect, parallel. Raise it up slightly, right there. Perfect. Beautiful. And you can drop that now. And there you go. I was able to focus it in 85. I moved her back. I thought about if I can see that image compared to the 70 photograph that we shot 2 frames ago, please. Compared side to side. Thank you very, very much. I feel like I have an imaginary mouse somewhere. Okay? The light is really no different. The light in the background is. Because the subject moves so, I said the subject and I hate doing that. I'm gonna say it just for the form of this class. Moving that light towards the background is gonna put light behind that subject because I'm getting closer to that background, it's more difficult to turn my light. As I'm turning my light, know that I'm putting light just on the side of her face because of the fact that this is now gridded. I don't have any fall off of light on this side. I'm gonna show you guys that example. And again, this works with any modifier. This is how you have to think about it. It doesn't matter if it's a softbox or a softbox with a grid, it all works the same. Same with the softbox, the octabox there. Bless you. Okay, so if I were to compensate and put it on her, because I don't want to see the background, you don't have to put that in just yet. After this frame. Perfect, 85. Awesome. We have split light. Let's see. Right away. I'm going to take that same thing, and what I want to do is fill in the opposite half. So instead of just putting it on this side, I'll have a nice thin dark spot here if you do that. Move it more so towards the side of her face, the front, because I want to fill in all of that. So I'm going to have you take this and bring it here. Thank you. And move it closer. Right there. So what am I doing? There's a point to this. Move it even closer. I'm going to have you bring it right there. We talked about angle of view, right? What's happening? Well, if you, Mike, can you overexpose that image for me? Thank you. You can put that down for 2 seconds. Every little change that I make on set is going to manipulate what happens in the final image, and it's more so apparent in a smaller space. I'm shooting it in 85, what am I getting in frame? Because I'm trying to expose for that side, I'm bringing in that reflector, let's say, and now the reflector's in my shot because I chose to use that focal length. It's that minute change that I wanted to adjust for the background. I didn't want to see light on the background, so I said, you know what, let me move it over. Let me bring in that reflector. Okay, I have the reflector in now. Okay, so now what do I do? Let me take the same photograph. I'm at an 85 angle of view. Changed everything. So I can shoot, let's say, at a closer distance to her, but now I get back to compression. And it's all those different variables that you need to consider. Sometimes you have to be realistic with your expectations and just realize that, you know what, I need to choose one or the other. And that's evident. So what's easier for me as a photographer? Cropping this image or sitting here and adjusting for this all day? Cropping, that's how my head goes, is like I would rather just sit there and crop it if I had to for that specific image. And the point of this, it's weird looking at that really overexposed now because I was like, can you fix exposure for me? Just for OCD purposes? Perfect, so if we were to crop that, it wouldn't be a terrible photograph because compression's nice, right? So I can opt to I can opt to use a 35, but at the end of the day, the 35 is going to go ahead and distort her face. So I'm choosing to use this. So again, angle of view, lighting, lighting position, color cast. All those things play a huge role in the way that we want to photograph our subject. Those small, minute details and changes work regardless if you're using studio lighting or these small speed lights. Same thing, same ordeal. The difference between these small speed lights, it's a smaller form of light. I can direct control more so towards our subject. You saw the difference between using the softbox and using our beauty dish. It's still a smaller light. As I get smaller, the more I'm able to control my light. So if you're investing in a studio for the first time, maybe you want to opt for these. If you're just shooting in a small space and that's all you have, maybe you don't want to opt for larger forms of light. These may be a good solution for you guys. Thank you very much for your help. Thank you very much for your help. Thank you kindly. Any questions?
Sadly,
Can I move this wall now?
I don't think we have time for questions. That was a lot of really, really awesome content.
Thank you.
So thank you, Jeff. Thank you, everyone, for participating and being a part of this class. I hope that it was useful for you. I know I got some ideas of stuff that I can do in my home.